Hello again and welcome to the penultimate episode in Racerkarts Rifles. In this episode we're looking at pellets and how we go about selecting the best ones for our rifle. Again, it's another boring one, but it will get a bit more interesting as we get into the next series. Enjoy! How accurate an air rifle is, it all comes down to the pellet that you use realistically. Pre-charged pneumatic, they're quite forgiving on pellets. Anything with a choke barrel is quite forgiving on pellets. You know, you can often hear me whinge about a pellet in my Remington. If it you know, it's got any variables in that pellet, that Remington will basically weed them out, no problem. And I trust that rifle, you know, to sort out my pellets for me. But for pre-charged pneumatic, as you can see there, with these day states 10-shot groups, we've got two 7mm groups and a 6mm group. Any bunny, once I've got my trajectory sorted, is dead meat basically, ain't it? You can see that from there. Now, what about if we were to do this at 25, not 25 yards, at say 60 yards? So we get a shot to do this. We get a slight tailwind behind us. As you can see, it's lifted the Diablo Fields and the Daystate Sovereigns up slightly as the wind's been blowing and carrying it, so we've gained a few extra yards on our trajectory. But as you can see, if we were to go and you'll see this in a second, we take our Daystate Sovereigns at 60 yards. We can then readjust this. You know, if we were to do our trials properly, you would end up with something that looks like that once we re-zero it and adjust for windage and everything else. As you can see, these Rangemaster Sovereigns are right on the ragged edge at 60 yards. I would probably still sort of take the shot. If I was on the Air Arms Diablo Fields, I would definitely take the shot. Falcon Accuracy Plus, I would still take the shot. Looking out to 80 yards, you can see that the Air Arms Diablo Fields start to break up. The day states remain a bit more consistent. They don't break up as much. So at 80 yards, we've got a 2 in 5 chance of hitting it. Realistically, with the Air Arms Diablo Field, when we centered the group, you know, we're probably not going to hit it. So we know where our limits now are. So with the day state, we're probably saying 60 yards is the max. Same with the Air Arms Diablo Field. You know, that is ultimately how accurate a modern pre-charged air rifle is. However, if we consider spring rifles, as you can see here, my Walther Century, this was before a lot of the modification work was done to it. Using Daystate Sovereigns, we're getting well inside an inch. These are about 32mm, I think, these holes here. They're slightly bigger than an inch. But ultimately, you know, the Daystate Sovereigns, you get a 30-yard zero there. You can see how tightly that groups. These are 10-shot groups. This is the VMXs here. You can see the difference there. Cheap pellet versus a good quality pellet. And again, the Sovereigns there. And then I start to notice that I start to get a little bit of spatter as I jump all over the place. This is down to the actual scope that I was using at the time, which, you know, gave me basically 3 or 4 weird shots. But when it's on, you can see that the spring rifle is not as accurate at 25 yards as what, or consistent at 25 yards. But don't forget, you're reloading every shot. Your head's moving around in the scope a lot. You're adjusting your parallax all the time, effectively, because your head's in a different position. And then not only do we have to take that into account, we've also got to manage a recoil, which is going to throw the rifle about a little bit. But as you can see, it's mainly a power thing here. VMXs are just crap. They were just shooting all over the place like a shotgun anyway. And that's why they're like that. But as you've seen from the pellet reviews, you know, the VMX is scoring the lowest at the minute. There will be others, but for the time being. But that's how accurate air guns are. It is absolutely key that you select a pellet that works with your barrel. Otherwise, you're fighting a losing battle from the start. You need to make sure that you have a scope that has parallax adjustment on it. Otherwise, as you can see down here, we're fighting a losing battle, and there. We need to make sure that our scope keeps our zero. We don't end up with scope mounts that shock it off zero. Otherwise, we're going to find we have an accuracy problem, as you can see there. And this is ultimately what all this is. If we have a moderator, then we need to use it, because we can then tighten up our groups as we go out to bigger distances like 60 and 80 yards. If we were to take the moderator off at this point here, we would find our groups would probably double in size. And as we just spoke about, recoiling versus recoilless also has a massive effect on the accuracy, which is why I always say spring for practicing, pre-charged pneumatic for hunting. Alright dudes, hope you enjoyed the episode. Busy playing with a bit of night vision gear. Future episode, we'll see. Pellets are quite key if you want to really tighten up your groups, as you can see. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where you're going to have to spend a little bit of money in order to get the maximum amount out of it. There are other companies on the internet that will do little trial packs for you, but they cost a bit more. But Racerkarts rifles, we do all the pellet work for you anyway, out of pretty much standard barrels. Stick with them, you won't go wrong. As always, stay safe, shoot straight, don't troll, and I'll see you in the next episode. Holly, out.